I, male, 32, just found out my wife, female, 30, is having an affair with my best friend since childhood. Do I expose them at Christmas dinner with his family who practically raised me? I had a pretty rough childhood. My mom died from cancer when I was 4, and my dad was never in the picture. After mom died, I bounced around foster care for years, 7 different homes by the time I was 10. Some were okay, some were not great. The only constant thing in my life back then was my friendship with Tyler, who I met in 2nd grade. We just clicked right away, and his parents, Robert and Carol, were always super nice to me. When I was 10, I ended up in this really bad foster situation, and Tyler must have told his parents, because next thing I knew, Robert and Carol were talking to social services and basically took me in. Not like a formal adoption or anything, but they became my unofficial foster parents, and I lived with them until college. These people helped me so much. They drove me to soccer practice, helped me with homework, came to every school event, helped me apply for colleges, cried at my graduation. They're more parents to me than anyone has ever been. Robert even walked me down the aisle with Tyler when I got married to Andrea 5 years ago. That's how close we all are. About Andrea, we met in college, dated for 3 years, been married for 5. She works as a marketing exec at some regional firm, makes good money. I'm a 4th grade teacher. We've been happy, at least I thought we were. We even started talking about trying for a baby after the holidays. She seemed excited about it. We were looking at houses with bigger yards, all that stuff couples do, you know. But then like 7 months ago, things started to feel off. Andrea suddenly had all these work emergencies and late nights and weekend meetings. At first, I didn't think anything of it. She's always been ambitious, and I've always supported her career. But then I started noticing other stuff too. She got super protective of her phone, would take it to the bathroom, never leave it face up, changed her passwords, started doing her makeup even on weekends when we weren't going anywhere, bought a bunch of new underwear, which okay, people buy underwear, but it was different than her usual stuff. Just seemed emotionally somewhere else, like physically there, but mentally checked out. Started picking fights over stupid little things. About 3 months ago, I finally said something. Big mistake, apparently. I asked her about why Tyler was texting her at 1 a.m. I saw the notification pop up on her phone when she was in the shower. She claimed they were planning a surprise birthday thing for me. My birthday was like 2 months away at that point. When I mentioned that the preview of the text said something about missing you, she immediately got super defensive and accused me of going through her phone. She called me crazy and paranoid and said I was imagining things. Then she flipped it around and said this was because of my issues from foster care and that I should talk to my therapist about my jealousy. I ended up apologizing to her and promising to work on my trust issues. After that, I really did start to question myself. Like, was I just being paranoid? I even mentioned it to my therapist, who basically said that sometimes childhood trauma can make us see threats where there aren't any. And when I tried to talk to Tyler about it, he told me I was being ridiculous and Andrea would never cheat on me and I needed to get my head straight. So for months, I've just been trying to ignore all these red flags and telling myself I'm imagining things. Then last week, Andrea rushed out on a Saturday for another client emergency and left her iPad at home. It chimed with a notification and I know I shouldn't have looked, but after months of feeling like something was wrong, I just needed to know if I was right or not. I was right. There were hundreds of messages between her and Tyler going back 7 months. They've been having an affair this whole time. And the worst part, they were making fun of me for not figuring it out. Andrea was laughing about how I apologized to her when I got suspicious. Tyler said I was too trusting for my own good. They even joked about me talking to my therapist about my issues instead of realizing what was happening. I took screenshots of everything and backed them up in multiple places. I haven't confronted either of them yet. I'm just processing, I guess. I've been pretending everything is normal while I figure out what to do. Christmas is in 3 days. Robert and Carol always host this big family Christmas Eve dinner, and of course I'm invited like always. Tyler will be there. Andrea will be there. I'm supposed to bring the sweet potato casserole I make every year. Part of me wants to just file for divorce quietly and disappear from their lives. But another part of me feels like Robert and Carol deserve to know what kind of person their son really is. They've been more parents to me than anyone for over 20 years. Don't they deserve the truth? Would I be the asshole if I exposed the affair at Christmas dinner? I know it would devastate not just Andrea and Tyler, but also Robert and Carol. But continuing to pretend everything is fine while they all sit there, I don't think I can do it. Edit. Holy shit, I didn't expect this to blow up like this. Thank you all for the supportive comments. To answer some common questions. 1. Yes, I've already contacted a lawyer. Appointment is tomorrow morning. I have copies of all the evidence secured in multiple places. 2. Several people asked if Andrea and I have joint finances. We have one joint account for household expenses, but most of our money is separate, thankfully. I already moved my portion out of the joint account this morning. 3. A lot of you are suggesting I tell Robert and Carol privately before the dinner. I think that might be the way to go. They've been too good to me to blindside them like that. 4. For those asking if Tyler and Andrea know that I know, no, they have no idea. I've been acting completely normal while I figure out my next steps. 5. And yes, for those asking about children, we don't have any kids yet. Thank God. We were going to start trying after Christmas. Guess that's not happening now. Thank you all again. This community has made me feel less alone during the worst days of my life. Now for the first update. I exposed them at Christmas dinner with his family, who practically raised me. First, I just wanted to thank everyone who commented on my last post. I honestly wasn't expecting so many responses, and it really helped me not feel so alone during probably the worst few days of my life. A lot of you suggested I should expose them but not blindside Robert and Carol at dinner, which was really good advice. But as I started looking for more evidence, I realized I needed to make sure I had everything before moving forward. So here's what happened. After reading all your comments, I spent the next 2 days before Christmas basically turning into some kind of detective. Not a very good one, probably, lol. I know some of you said I already had enough evidence with the texts, but I wanted to make absolutely sure there was no way they could twist things around or make me look crazy. Andrea already tried the whole "you're paranoid because of your childhood trauma" thing once, and I wasn't about to let that happen again. I remembered this data recovery software thing one of my teacher friends used when she accidentally deleted all her students' grades. Nightmare scenario, right? I downloaded it and managed to recover a ton of deleted texts between them, going back even further than I thought. Like, I'm talking 8 months, not 7, and they were so much worse than what I'd already seen. There was stuff about how they'd been fighting their feelings for years, how they both deserved to be happy, and all that cheater justification. Tyler literally wrote, "Sometimes I think we should just tell him, but then I remember how dependent he is on us, and I can't do it." Dependent. I've been financially supporting myself since college. Andrea wrote back, "I know he'd fall apart without us. We need to be careful with his fragility." My fragility. I've survived foster care, losing my mom, and everything else life's thrown at me. But sure, I'm the fragile one. That made me so furious I almost threw my laptop across the room. Oh, and I also found credit card statements. We have a shared account for bills but keep separate cards, showing Andrea checked into this hotel like 30 miles away from our house like twice a week for months. Always on days she told me she was working late or having drinks with clients. And her location history on her Google account, yeah, we're on a family plan thing and I could access it, showed her at Tyler's apartment complex multiple times when he knew I was working late. I took the advice about talking to a lawyer too, thanks to whoever suggested that. Got an appointment like 2 days before Christmas. The lawyer said I should get all my important documents together before confronting Andrea and secure my financials, which I did. Moved half the money out of our joint account into a new one she doesn't have access to. The lawyer also said to make copies of all the evidence and store them in multiple places, which I already did. There was this really sad moment where I had to cancel my annual Christmas shopping trip with Tyler's younger sister, Maria. We always go together to buy gifts for Robert and Carol, and it's been our tradition for like a decade. I made up some excuse about having to grade final exams for my students, even though I'd already finished them like a week before. She sounded disappointed on the phone, and it just made me feel even worse because she has no idea what's going on. So Christmas Eve comes, and I'm like physically sick from anxiety. I almost called Robert beforehand like a lot of you suggested, but I don't know. I guess part of me was still hoping there was some explanation. I know, I'm an idiot. So I made the sweet potato casserole like always, got dressed in the Christmas sweater Carol gave me last year, and drove to their house like everything was normal. When Carol opened the door and hugged me tight, telling me how much they loved having me there every year, I almost couldn't go through with it. Robert gave me a big hug like always and said, "There's our boy," and I nearly broke down right there. Tyler showed up maybe 20 minutes after me, and he was acting super weird, like checking his phone every 2 minutes and watching me like he was waiting for me to do something. He barely spoke to me, which I guess was good, because I don't think I could have kept my cool if he tried to act all buddy-buddy. Andrea texted she was running late because of last-minute shopping, another lie. When Andrea finally arrived, she basically avoided looking at me the entire time. She kept finding reasons to be in different rooms than me, helping Carol in the kitchen or whatever. Tyler kept making these weird excuses to follow her around. It was so obvious looking back, but Robert and Carol didn't seem to notice. Carol gave me this handcrafted photo album she must have spent months making. It had all these pictures of me from when I first came to live with them. Soccer games, graduations, family trips, my wedding. She wrote this note calling me the second son of our hearts, and I almost couldn't go through with exposing everything. But then I remembered they deserved the truth. Dinner was the hardest part. We all sat down and Robert asked everyone to share something they're grateful for before we eat. After everyone else went, it was my turn, and I could barely breathe. I thanked Robert and Carol for everything they'd done for me. Told them how they gave me stability and love when no one else would. I started crying and said they deserved honesty from everyone who claimed to love them. I pulled out my tablet. I had everything ready on it and passed it to Robert. I said I was sorry to do this today, but they needed to know the truth. Watching Robert's face change as he scrolled through everything was awful. He went from confused to shocked to just angry, like a kind of quiet anger I've never seen from him. Andrea immediately started talking over me, saying it was all a misunderstanding and I was taking things out of context. Tyler tried to grab the tablet from his dad, which just made him look more guilty. Carol kept asking what was happening, and Robert just handed her the tablet. She started crying almost immediately. Tyler stood up and started yelling that I was manipulating old texts and was just jealous of him. Andrea called me mentally unstable and said I was having an episode because of my childhood trauma. That's when I played the audio. I found a way to recover a voice memo on Andrea's iPad that she must have accidentally recorded and then deleted. It was them laughing about how I apologized to her when I got suspicious that one time. Tyler saying I was too trusting, and Andrea laughing about how I was talking to my therapist about my issues instead of figuring out what they were doing. The whole room went completely silent after that, except for Carol quietly crying. Robert was just staring at Tyler like he didn't recognize his own son. Tyler tried to minimize it, said it was just a mistake, and not as bad as it seems. Then he switched to being angry, telling me I had no right to bring this here and ruin Christmas for everyone. He actually tried to make me the bad guy for exposing them. Robert, who is the calmest man I've ever known, stood up and very quietly asked everyone except me to leave the dining room. Andrea tried to say something else, but he just repeated, "Now, please," in this voice that nobody was going to argue with. When it was just the three of us, Carol was still crying and Robert just sat there for a minute. Then he told me they believed me, that they were upset by Tyler's betrayal, but that they were grateful I had told them the truth. Carol reached over and held my hand and said no matter what happened with Andrea or Tyler, I would always be their son too. Robert called Tyler back in, alone, and told him to leave the house. Tyler started protesting and tried to blame me. Robert told him they raised him better than this, that he didn't know who Tyler was right now, and that he needed to leave. Tyler looked at Carol like she would defend him, but she just shook her head. I don't know what happened with Andrea because I couldn't stand to be there anymore. I said goodbye to Robert and Carol, apologized for ruining Christmas, which they both insisted I hadn't done, and drove home. When I got home, I just broke down. I turned off my phone because it was already blowing up with texts, took one of those sleeping pills my doctor prescribed for my occasional insomnia, and passed out. And that brings us to this morning. But I'll save that for another update because this is already way too long. Now for the second update. First, thank you to everyone who commented with support. I'm sorry this update took a while, but everything's been completely insane. So after I left Robert and Carol's house on Christmas Eve, I basically came home and shut down. I turned my phone off, took one of those sleeping pills my doctor gave me for my occasional insomnia. I don't use them much, but figured this qualified as an emergency, and just passed out for almost 12 hours straight. When I woke up Christmas morning and turned my phone back on, I had 34 missed calls. Not exaggerating. 13 from Tyler, 11 from Andrea, 5 from Robert and Carol, 3 from Tyler's sister Maria, and get this, 2 from my school principal who is friends with Andrea. Like, what the frick? I have no idea what Andrea told her, but that felt like crossing another line somehow. I listened to some of the voicemails and honestly wish I hadn't. Tyler was furious, saying I destroyed Christmas out of spite and that I manipulated the situation to make him look bad. Pretty sure he did that himself by sleeping with my wife. He also said stuff about how I was always playing the victim because of my childhood and how I was emotionally blackmailing his parents. I had to stop listening because I was getting so angry I thought I might throw my phone against the wall. Andrea's messages were somehow even worse. She kept going back and forth between crying and being defensive. One minute she was sobbing about how it was just a physical thing that didn't mean anything. And the next, she was saying I humiliated her on purpose. She basically said she knew what she did was wrong, but I didn't have to be so cruel about it. Like, are you kidding me? Robert just asked me to call when I felt ready, no pressure. Carol said they were thinking about me and that they loved me. Maria wanted to know what was going on because Tyler wasn't making any sense. I couldn't deal with calling anyone back right away, so I made the mistake of checking social media. Tyler had already posted some vague BS about toxic people who manipulate situations and the truth always having two sides, without actually saying what happened. Some mutual friends were already messaging me asking what the frick was going on. I closed the apps and decided to just disconnect for the day. Around noon, Robert and Carol showed up at my door. They brought me Christmas dinner. Turkey, stuffing, potatoes, even Carol's pumpkin pie. They refused to let me spend Christmas Day alone. We had this really emotional conversation. They kept saying that no matter what happened with Andrea or with Tyler, I would always be their family. Robert told me that family isn't just blood, it's who shows up and stays honest, and I lost it again. I've cried more in the last few days than I have in like the last decade combined, I swear. They told me that after I left, they confronted Tyler, who eventually admitted to everything when they showed him the evidence. He tried to blame Andrea at first, claiming she pursued him and threatened him if he didn't go along with it, which is complete BS based on the texts I saw. He's staying at some hotel while they process everything. Carol looked so tired. I felt terrible about this, but they kept saying I did the right thing. When I finally got back to our house, mine and Andrea's I discovered she'd already been there while I was asleep. She moved some of her clothes out and is apparently staying with her sister. But she left divorce papers on the kitchen counter. Like actual divorce papers, her lawyer must have prepared in advance, with a note basically saying I was overreacting and humiliating her, and she couldn't believe I would do this to her. The absolute nerve of this woman, I swear. Oh, and she took the expensive coffee maker we got as a wedding gift. It was like $500, her parents gave it to us, but left behind the framed photo of our honeymoon. Just left it there on the counter, face down. I don't know why, but that detail really hurt me all over again. It's been about 3 weeks now since all this happened, and I've been going to therapy twice a week trying to process this double betrayal. My therapist says I'm handling it remarkably well considering the circumstances, but honestly, I don't feel like I'm handling it well at all. I've filed all the divorce paperwork, and my lawyer says since we don't have kids and our finances aren't too entangled, it should be straightforward. Thank God we never got around to buying that house with the bigger yard. Andrea has been telling mutual friends that I always had jealousy issues. Not true. And that I ambushed her at Christmas for maximum damage, like I'm some kind of villain. Some friends have actually believed her version, which honestly hurts almost as much as the cheating. I mean, these people have known me for years. How could they think I would make something like this up? I don't even care what people think. Okay, that's a lie. I obviously do care a little. But it's been pretty clear who my real friends are based on who's reached out to check on me versus who's suddenly too busy to return my texts. My buddy Chris from work has been amazing. He literally came over with beer and pizza the day after Christmas and just let me vent for hours. But my friend Jake, who I've known since college, is suddenly trying to stay neutral and doesn't want to take sides. Taking sides between a cheater and the person who got cheated on shouldn't be hard, Jake. Robert called me a few days ago about Tyler trying to make up with them. Tyler showed up at his parents' house about a week after Christmas. Robert answered, but didn't invite him in. Tyler said he and Andrea have real feelings for each other, and Robert asked if those feelings justified lying to me for 7 months. Tyler then claimed I was always emotionally dependent on him and his family, which is such crap. I've been on my own financially since college and fine emotionally despite everything. Carol asked Tyler if he understood the pain he'd caused, and he had the nerve to say everyone was overreacting to one mistake. Robert reminded him the affair lasted over half a year, and Tyler tried to claim he'd tried to end it, but Andrea threatened to tell me if he did, which makes no sense given the texts I saw. When they asked why he didn't come to them for help, if that was true, Tyler had no answer. He just asked when he could come home, and Robert said not now, and closed the door. Tyler's relationship with his parents is still really strained from what I can tell, but Robert and Carol have continued to include ME in family dinners and Sunday brunches. Last Sunday, Carol made her blueberry pancakes and didn't even mention Tyler until I asked how he was doing. Robert just said he's figuring things out and changed the subject. Maria told me that Andrea and Tyler's relationship is already having problems. She saw them arguing at some restaurant downtown. Andrea was crying, and Tyler was looking around like he was embarrassed to be seen with her. Part of me feels a sick satisfaction about that. Is that terrible of me? But mostly I just feel empty about it. Like they blew up multiple lives for this. The whole thing still feels unreal sometimes. I lost my marriage and my oldest friendship in one day, but at least now I know the truth. Last weekend was Robert and Carol's 40th anniversary dinner. Tyler wasn't there, obviously, but I was seated at the family table. When Robert made a toast about loyalty and honesty, he looked right at me, and I almost lost it again. So yeah, I guess the betrayal cost me my wife and my best friend. But I didn't lose the family that chose me all those years ago and continues to choose me now.